Janie, I think I heard an Australian accent in there. Completely wrong? Wow. So I'll just stop talking now. Janie, everyone.
So the summer I turned 11 was long and hot. My friends and I, we played outside for the whole of the time. We played in the streets, we played in each other's gardens, played in the woods, played in the fields, and we just had the best of times. And every so often, one of my friends would take a week or 2 weeks out as they went off on holiday with their family. But they'd come back and we'd carry on playing. So it was the best summer. But my summer was a little bit different because money was a little bit tight that year. And so we weren't going on a family holiday. So it didn't really matter that much because, we had my friends and we were still playing. So it was really always cool. But there was something else about that summer. I don't know if you remember when you're 11, it's that strange, awkward time. Hey, you really desperately want to fit in, but you also kind of want to stand out and you want to explore your own personality. And it was also the first summer that I realized that I had a massive crush on one of my teachers. So I was kind of looking forward to going back to school as well. So end of the summer comes, we're back at school. It's the first week, Wednesday afternoon, double English. Don't you just love it? And that dreadful question that all English teachers and maybe drama teachers like to ask as well. Okay, tell the class what you did this summer. Start at one end, and slowly all my friends are talking about what they've done that summer, where they've been. They went to see their grandparents, they went on holiday to the beach, and it's coming closer and closer and closer to me, and I have no idea what I'm going to tell the rest of the class about, especially since this is the teacher that I've got the crush on. So I really want him to listen to me. Eventually it's my turn. And so I start to tell the whole class the fact that during the summer holidays in the evenings, I would wait until it got dark and I'd watch the family of badgers that lived at the end of my garden. I'd wait until I could hear the rustling of the leaves, which meant they were coming through the hedge from one side. And gradually I'd see a snout coming through, and the oldest badger, the biggest badger, would come through, and he'd walk along, but with his nose like on the ground, rustling through the grass, looking for a worm to eat. Sometimes he'd dig a little bit, he'd find a worm, he'd stop, and he'd be chewing on this worm, staring off into space. And then gradually the other badgers would come out of the hedge as well. Some of them would walk along the rotten logs just like it was a tightrope. Others would play just like they were playing tag. And so I was explaining this and describing it to everybody in the class. And I could see from the corner of my eye, my teacher, he was quite interested, and he started to ask a few questions. So I was very happy to answer all of his questions about the badgers that lived at the end of my garden. And all was good. So eventually it was the last person's turn, and it was the end of class, so we all started to file out. And this teacher just catches me and says, I'd just like to ask you a few more questions about the badgers. And I'm like, my teacher has noticed me. This is really good. So I tell him more stories, more information about the badgers that I've been watching. And all is good. All is good. So I think nothing more of it. We finish school. Next morning we come back to school and the teacher's waiting for me as we file into class. And he says, Janie, I was just wondering, I've been thinking about it. Would it be possible for us to bring a small group of students to come and watch the badgers at the end of your garden one evening? So, no, I don't think that's such a good idea. So, they're really shy, they're really nervous. I don't want them to be scared off. He says, no, we'd be really quiet. There'd only be a few of us. No, I don't think that's good. No, you know what? Actually, sir, my mum said I wasn't really to tell anybody about the badgers. So I don't think it's a good idea that we ask and we try and bring some students in to watch. So he looks a bit quizzical, but anyhow, he lets it go, and I don't think anything else of it. spend the rest of the day at school. Home time comes, my friends, we're all in a big group. You know how it is when you're walking home. Gradually one person turns off to their house, another person. Eventually it's my turn to turn off to my house. As I turn the corner and I'm at the top of the lane, I can see there's washing out in the garden. And that's kind of strange because as money's been a bit tight this year, my mum's been working and she doesn't normally get home until about an hour after I'm home from school. So it doesn't quite make sense that there's washing out on the line because that means that she's home. So I walk in the door, sling my bag on the side, and my mum comes in the kitchen and she's got this expression on her face that I can't quite interpret. It's kind of angry, but there's something else there as well. I don't know. So she says, Jane, tell me about these badgers at the end of our garden. What can I do? My head hangs, my shoulders sink. Hot and cold, prickly sweat on your forehead. Cheeks are burning. Because of course, there were no badgers at the end of our garden. She says, why did you tell such a lie to your whole class, to your teacher? I don't have an answer. I found out I'm humiliated. So I mumble something. I'm looking at my feet, and she says, okay. She says, here's the deal. You must go, you must apologize to your teacher. And of course, that's the worst, hey, because there's this guy, I've got this crush, and now I've got to apologize, and I'm going to look like a complete idiot. And it's like, oh. Anyhow, somehow, the next morning, I stumble through this apology. But from then on, I made myself a promise that I would never tell stories again. And I kept that promise to myself for several decades, until I had my own son about 15 years ago. And I started to tell him bedtime stories. So I started to tell him stories about this family of badgers that used to live at the end of my garden when I was a little kid. And he loved them. And I discovered that I loved telling the stories too. So this has been a story about me discovering telling stories while I'm telling you a story about telling stories. So thank you very much.